Hello everyone, welcome back to the Nut House. Today I want to show you how to make an easy baked donut, and we're going to do it in the bread machine today. We're going to start by adding a half a cup of sugar in the bottom of the bread pan. Then we're going to add 3/4 cup of whole milk and a half a cup of butter that I have put in the microwave and softened it a little bit. We're going to add about 1/4 to a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Now you don't have to add nutmeg if you don't like it. You can add really any flavoring you like here. Cinnamon or just vanilla. It's all up to you. Now we're going to add some of my homemade lemon extract. You can use lemon zest in this instead, but I made this extract several months ago and I need to strain the peels out, but I'm going to go ahead and add about a teaspoon of it into the bread pan as well. Now we're going to add 2 eggs into the pan. We're going to crack them, scramble them up a little bit. I'm also going to check my temperature and make sure it's not too hot because the mixture was hot. And the last thing we want is scrambled egg that is cooked in our bread. So we're going to add those in now. Now I'm going to start adding the flour. Today I'm using all-purpose flour, but you can also use bread flour, which would probably give a higher rise. But you can use whatever you have. We're using 4 cups today. When I'm making my homemade cinnamon rolls and caramel pecan rolls, I always use a high quality bread flour. So an all-purpose flour would work, but the bread flour, I like the texture and the way it is. Now when I make pizza dough, I always use all-purpose flour because I like it much better than I do the bread flour, because bread flour has a higher gluten and it makes for a much harder to roll out dough, I would say, because when you're spreading your pizza dough, sometimes it'll want to shrink back on you, and I don't have that happen with the all-purpose in the pizza dough. So we're going to add, let's see, 2 teaspoons of yeast. Now I'm using bread machine yeast or instant yeast, and also 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And I'm going to use the dough setting on the bread machine, and it's just going to make my dough, and then I'll form it how I want it when it's done. Now I want to say you do not have to use a bread machine to make this recipe. You can use a mixer, like a stand mixer. You can even do this by hand. It might be more work, but you can certainly do it. And I'm using this bread machine because I found it at the thrift store for $10. So I want it to do the work for me. It will heat it just enough to let it rise. And so I'm going to put it to some use today. Also, I want to watch my dough, and when it starts forming, I want to make sure that it's not too dry, and also that it's not too liquidy or too hydrated, because then I'll add just a little bit of flour. And on this recipe, I'm pretty sure that I had to add about a teaspoon of flour. I would only add a teaspoon at a time because the dough looked a little wet. So the dough machine beeped and said it was ready. Now I could have let it stay for a little longer and let it rise a little bit more, but I went ahead and got it out of the machine, and we're going to oil our surface. Now I wouldn't flour the surface because I don't want any more flour added into the dough. It will make it tougher the more flour I add, so I put some olive oil down. We're just going to roll this into about a 1/2 of an inch thick. Now if you want ginormous ones, you can get a big donut cutter or a big biscuit cutter. I'm just using my biscuit cutter today, and it made pretty small ones. You can also use a glass cup or mason jar lids. I've used all of those. And what I'm going to do is just poke a hole in the center and kind of stretch it out a bit. Now when it rises, sometimes this hole does close, and that's okay. You can do it however you like. And we're going to put this on a pan, and then I'm going to let it rise for about an hour. Now at that point, I can either bake it like I did today, or I could fry it. And you know, frying is just a little bit more messy, but it's so much more delicious. So you can do whatever you want to do in that situation. So the remaining dough I'm trying to pull together, but it didn't want to pull together too much. But I got what I could and cut out some more. And then I decided I would just roll out some long, like log shape, and then put them together. You can make any shape you want. I just don't want to waste any of this dough. Now I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and I'm going to watch these, and they take between 8 and 10 minutes, but keep an eye on them because some of mine did get a little brown. Now I have them out of the oven, and I let them rest for about 5 minutes. I'm going to make the icing for it. We're going to use 2 cups of powdered sugar and about 1/4 cup of milk, and I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla as well. You don't have to. You can add maple flavoring, lemon. I think I do add about 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon to this because I had the nutmeg in the dough and I wanted it to have like a cinnamon icing. But this is going to be kind of thick, and that's what I want because I'm going to just put these in there and let the top get covered, and then it's going to drip on a rack with some foil or wax paper or something underneath it because it does make a mess if you don't have anything under it. If you fried them and you could dip them in this mixture or roll them in some powdered sugar, I bet they sure would be delicious that way. Thank you all for watching. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please subscribe and like and leave us a comment down below.